I want to give all honors and glories and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Kodash, Yahweh, which is the one true name of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one true name is Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, meaning coming in the name. Ba means coming in, Ha means the, Shah means name, Rakah means spirit, Kodash means holy. Peace, blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect, and shalom to you sincere brothers that are scattered abroad, pushing forth this word in truth and sincerity. And shalom to you sincere sisters that are listening in silence as the scriptures command you to do so. I am the brother Mashiach Razakah, and pretty much this lesson is going to be titled as Dreadlocks are a heathen custom. Now, I'm titling this lesson as this is because you still got Israelites out there that are still teaching and believing that when you go to Numbers 6 and 5 and you read Judges 16:13, that's referring to Samson having dreadlocks. And that's not what those scriptures is referring to. Dreadlocks is a heathen custom. The Elamites, that's their custom, which they worship their god Shiva, right? Those so-called Indonesians, which are the Elamites today. Okay, they participate in worshiping Shiva. And when they have those, they call them Jeddas, right? Those are a heathen custom. Samson didn't have dreads; he had braids, and we're gonna prove that in this lesson because you still got this deception going on where these Jakes, I call them Rastafarian Israelites. They believe that Samson had dreadlocks, right? Because he kept the Nazarite vow, right? Which dreads is not keeping a Nazarite vow. Dreadlocks is a heathen custom. All right. Now you had other prophets that did keep the Nazarite vow, which was having braids. John the Baptist, he was keeping the Nazarite vow, right? You had John the Baptist, you had Samson, and then there was another prophet. I always forget the other prophet. So you have prophets that did keep the Nazarite vow, but in this present time today, it's going to be hard for you to keep the Nazarite vow, and that's having plaits, braids, okay? Having plaits and braids. It wasn't talking about dreadlocks. So that's what this lesson is going to be on. We're going to edify through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashima Shai. And, Lord willing, this lesson is edifying out there. So for you Jakes out there, dreadlocks is not an Israelite custom. It's a heathen custom. It has nothing to do with being an Israelite. None of that stuff. So let's get started. Now, we're going to read in the NLT to make it more simpler, right? So let's get to it. Numbers 16, Numbers 6, chapter 6 and verse 1, and we're going to read down. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If any man, it says if any of the people, either men or women, take the special vow of a Nazarite, right? When you go into the meaning of that word Nazarite there, it goes into the meaning of consecrated, right? To be separate, consecrated, right? That's what a Nazarite is, keeping a Nazarite vow, right? So when you go to Nazarite, it goes into H5139, right? And it says Nazir, that's the Hebrew word, which is Nazar, right? Consecrated or devoted one, right? It says Nazarite, right? Consecrated one, devoted Nazarite, untrimmed vine, right? And when you look down of KJV translation count, it says separate 2 times, Nazarite 12 times. So that word Nazarite, it means consecrated, to be separate. You see that? It says Strong's definition, Nazir, right? Or Nazir, right? H5144, separate, consecrated, as Prince a Nazarite. Hence, figuratively, from a ladder, an unpruned vine, like an uncerned Nazarite. See? Nazarite, by a false alteration with Nazareth. Separate. So that word Nazarite there, it means to be consecrated or to be separate. That's what it means. So when you keep in a Nazarite vow, that's a spiritual bond that you're having with the Lord Yahweh. Okay? So to keep a Nazarite vow is very hard in this time to do. You can't keep a Nazarite vow, right? Because with a Nazarite vow, you can't eat anything of the vine tree. You can't eat tomatoes, grapes, raisins. You can't drink any wine. You can't do any of that. You can't be around dead bodies. None of that when you have a Nazarite vow, right? It says setting themselves apart to the Lord in a spiritual way, right? That's a strong spiritual bond that you're having with the Lord when you keep in a Nazarite vow. It's hard to keep a Nazarite vow. Verse 3, it says they must give up wine, you see, other alcohol drinks. You can't drink any wine, alcohol, any of that with a Nazarite vow, right? It says they must not use vinegar. You can't consume vinegar made from wine, right? Or from other alcoholic drinks. They must not drink fresh grape juice. So you can't eat grapes, tomatoes, anything of the vine tree with a Nazarite vow, right? It says, and they must not eat grapes or raisins. See, so you can't eat any tomatoes, grape, raisins. You can't eat anything with the vine tree, right? It says, verse 4, it says, as long as they are bound by their Nazarite vow, right, they are not allowed to eat or drink anything that comes from the grapevine, right? Not even the grape seeds or skins. See, so you can't eat anything of the vine tree with a Nazarite vow. You can't eat tomatoes, grapes, raisins. You can't drink wine. You can't drink anything. You can't drink any alcoholic beverages. None of that with a Nazarite vow, right? So it's going to be hard for you to keep that. If you keep in a Nazarite vow, it's going to be hard for you to keep that. Verse 5, it says they must never cut their hair throughout the time of their vow, for they are holy and set apart to the Lord. You see that? Because remember, we went into the meaning of Nazarite there. It means to be consecrated or separate, right? That's a spiritual bond with the Lord when you keep in a Nazarite vow. It says until the time of their vow has been fulfilled. It says they must let their hair grow long. You see that? And that's not talking about dreadlocks. That's talking about having long braids, long hair. Samson had cornrows. He had plaits. He had braids. He didn't have no dreads. Okay. Verse 6, and they must not go near any dead body during their entire period of their vow to the Lord. See, so you can't, if you lost a relative, you can't even go to the funeral. And this present time now is considered a funeral. You can't be near any dead bodies or any of that with a Nazarite vow. And you see a lot of these dudes, this example, a lot of these dudes that have, you know, just saying if dreadlocks was a Nazarite vow, you got a lot of dudes that go to these funerals. They have dreadlocks and all that. If you was keeping a Nazarite vow, you're not supposed to even go to that. Even if dreads were a Nazarite vow, which dreadlocks are not a Nazarite vow. But even if it was a Nazarite vow, you're not supposed to be going to no funerals or be around any dead bodies, man. Right? The scriptures clearly said that. But that shows you there, right? A Nazarite vow, you just giving an example, you can't go to no funerals. You wouldn't be able to eat any tomatoes, grapes, anything of the vine tree. You can't do any of that with a Nazarite vow, right? It's going to be hard for you to keep that vow. Verse 7, it says, even if the dead person is their own father, mother, brother, or sister, they must not defile themselves, for the hair on their head is the symbol of their separation to the Most High. You see that? So if you lost your father, your mother, your sister, you couldn't even go to their funeral. You can't be around no dead bodies. That would be defiling your vow with the Lord, and you will have to cut all your hair off. You see that? Verse 8, it says the requirement applies as long as they are set apart to the Lord. So that's the main part of a Nazarite vow. When you keep in a Nazarite vow, right, you're having a strong spiritual bond with the Lord. So you can't defile your Nazarite vow. You can't eat any tomatoes, grapes. You can't eat anything of the vine tree, or you can't drink any wine or alcohol beverages. See, so my question is to you, if you jakes out there that's supposed to be keeping the Nazarite vow, how are you able to keep the Passover? Because you have to drink wine. You have to drink wine. So you would have to cut your hair for the Passover. You have to cut your hair every year. Because the Passover is the new year. So you would have to cut your hair every year. You see that? So you ain't going to be able to keep no Nazarite vow. But again, dreadlocks is the main point. Dreadlocks is not an Israelite custom. That's a heathen custom. If you are a Rastafarian Israelite, you better cut them shits off because it ain't got nothing to do with being an Israelite. That's a heathen custom. Numbers 6 and 9. If someone falls dead beside them, look, with a Nazarite vow, if somebody falls dead beside them, it says the hair they have dedicated will be defiled. So if somebody died beside them, and they keeping a Nazarite vow, you will have to cut your hair, right? Look, it says they must wait for 7 days and then shaving their heads. If somebody died right beside you, you would have to wait 7 days and then cut your hair off. Because you just defiled your Nazarite vow with the Lord. It's hard to keep a Nazarite vow, right? And it says wait for 7 days and then shave their heads. It says then they will be cleansed from their defilement. You see that? So you can't be around no dead bodies. You can't drink any wine, any alcohol beverages, right? You can't eat anything of the vine tree, tomatoes, grapes. You can't eat any of those things, and you can't be around no dead bodies. You see that? And if someone was to die right beside you, you would have to wait 7 days and cut your hair off. Verse 10, it says, on the 8th day, they must bring, see, so you would have to bring these things for that, because this would be a sacrifice you would have to do now. It says, on the 8th day, they must bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the tabernacle. The priest will offer one of the birds for a sin offering, because that's pretty much a sin. You broke the Nazarite vow, right? And it says, and the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will purify them from the guilt they incurred through contact with the dead body. It says, then they must reaffirm their commitment and let their hair begin to grow again. So they have to cut all their hair off. You see that? With a Nazarite vow. It says the days of their vow that were completed before their defilement are no longer count. It don't count because you defiled the vow. It says they must rededicate themselves to the Lord as a Nazarite for the full term of their vow. And each must bring 1-year-old male lamb for a guilt offering, right? Because you would do animal sacrifices for sins. We don't do that no more. But during that time, they had to do these things, right? These were the things for the sacrifices, for the completion of for remissions of sins back then. We don't have to do animal sacrifices now. We're able to repent through Yahushai's blood because he was our lamb. He was our sacrifice, right? Verse 13, and it says this is the ritual law for Nazarites. At the conclusion of their time of separation as Nazarites, they must each go to each of the tabernacle, right? Verse 14, and offer their sacrifices to the Lord, and 1-year-old lamb without defect for a burnt offering, and 1-year-old female lamb without defect for a sin offering, a ram without defect for a peace offering. It says a basket of bread made without yeast, cakes, choice flour mixed with olive oil, and wafer spread with olive oil along their prescribed grain offerings and liquid offerings. The priest will present these offerings before the Lord. It says first the sin offering and the burnt offering, then the ram for a peace offering, along with basket or bread made without yeast. The priest must also present the praised grain. Salakia. This is Numbers. I started at number 16 because I forgot where I last read. Numbers 6 and 16. It says the priest will present these offerings before the Lord. First the sin offering and the burnt offering. Verse 17. Then the ram for a peace offering along with the basket of bread made without yeast. The priest must also present the prescribed grain of offering and liquid offering to the Lord. It says then the Nazarites, right? Then the Nazarites will shave their heads at the entrance of the tabernacle. They would take the hair that had been dedicated and place it on the fire beneath the peace offering. So they would cut their hair, right? They would shave their heads, and they will put it into the furnace for it to burn the hair, right? It says and place it on a fire beneath, and it says fire beneath the peace offering sacrifice. After the Nazarite's head has been shaven, right? It says the priest will take for each of them the boiled shoulder of the ram, and he will take from the basket a cake and a wafer made without yeast. It says he will put them all into the Nazarite's hand. Then the priest will lift them up as a special offering before the Lord. It says these are holy portions for the priest, along with the breast of the special offering and the thigh of the sacred offering that are lifted up before the Lord. After this ceremony, the Nazarites may again drink wine. And you see that? Drink wine. Because their hair is cut. So they can drink wine now. It says it right there. You see that? It says, live up before the Lord. After this ceremony, the Nazarites may drink again. It says the Nazarites may again drink wine because their hair is cut. Because they start a whole new vow, right? Verse 21, it says, this is the ritual law of the Nazarites. You see that? Who vow to bring these offerings to the Lord. They may also bring additional offerings if they can afford it, right? And they must be careful to do whatever they vowed when they set themselves apart as Nazarites. So that's the Nazarite vow. See, you see all those instructions and regulations that we had and codified laws that we had to follow just in that Nazarite vow. It's hard to keep a Nazarite vow. Let's go to Judges. Judges 16, right? And verse 13. So now you guys should understand what a Nazarite vow is and what's the importance of the reason of a Nazarite vow. It ain't got nothing to do with having Rastafarian dreads. That shit is a heathen custom. The Elamites do that. They worship Shiva, right? They call them Jettas, right? So if you got dreadlocks, you better cut them bitches because it's not an Israelite custom. Now I'm gonna prove to you that dreadlocks is not an Israelite custom. All right, and let me go back to Numbers real quick. Numbers 6 and 5. It says, this is the scripture that they read, that they must never cut their hair throughout the time of their vow, for they are holy and set apart to the Lord until the time of their vow has been fulfilled. They must let their hair grow. Now, when you go into the I'm in the NLT. So when you go to the King James version, right? Numbers 6 and 5, it says, all the days of a vow of his separation, there shall no razor come upon his head until the days be fulfilled in the which he separateth himself unto the Lord. He shall be holy and shall let the locks of his head grow. So people will read this scripture here and say, see, Samson had dreadlocks. But what they fail to realize is when you read about those locks there, that's talking about him having braids. That's not talking about having plaits. Let's prove it. When we go to Judges 16 and 13, right? Listen to this. And we're going to go into the meaning of that word lock there. It's going to prove that it's talking about plaits, braids. It's not talking about no damn dread. See, a dread, you could lock it, but you can't unlock it. A braid or a plait, you can lock it and unlock it. A dread, you can lock it, but you can't unlock it. You're going to have to literally cut that shit out of your head. A braid, you can lock it, you can form a lock when you're braiding it, and you can unlock it. That's what it's talking about. When it says locks, it's talking about braids. Let's prove it. Judges 16:13. And Delilah said unto Samson, hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou madest be bound. And he said unto her, if thou weavest the 7 locks, see, thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. And when you go into the meaning of that word locks there, right, it goes into H4253, which is malapa, right? Malapa, which means what? Braid, lock, plait, because a braid is a lock. When you braid somebody's hair, you're locking it. When them braids get worn out, you got new growth, you unlock them braids that you previously braided. You unlock them by what? Using the comb and combing through those locks and unlocking them, right? With a dread, it'll lock, but you can't unlock it. You can't unlock it. You gonna have to cut them out, man. Literally. It says braid, lock, plait. A plait. You see that? A plait. Right? A plait. You see that? A single length of hair or other flexible material made up of 3 or more interlaced strands, a braid. And when you look at braids, bear with me. You see that? This is what Samson had. He had braids. Like this. Braids. Perfect example right here. Braids. This is what Samson had. He had braids. Plaits. Braids. Right here. Perfect example. Braids. You see that? He didn't have no goddamn dreadlocks. He had braids. Something like this. This is what Samson had. Braids. It's showing females in here, but it had braids. This is what Samson had right here. Braids. You see that? Braids. Plaits. Cornrows. That's what he had. Cornrows. This right here. That's what he had. He didn't have no goddamn... This is perfect right here. This is what Samson had. Plaits. Braids. Cornrows. That's what he had. He didn't have no goddamn dreadlock. Dreadlocks is a heathen custom. Alright? So there you go. See that? Braid, plait, right? Let's go to entomology. Plait, right? Let's get it. Let's see if I can get it. You see that? Entomology of plait. You see that? It says to fold something, gather in pleats, double in narrow strips, also to braid or weave. You see that? So Samson had plaits, braids. He didn't have no damn dreadlocks. Okay, that dreadlock shit, that goes back to the Elamites, Hinduism, Shiva. That's where dreads come from. That's where it originates from. It is not an Israelite custom. There's a video on it. I just shared that. Brothers didn't put that video up. I'm not putting that video up today. You should be edified with these scriptures. And if you're a Jake, a Rastafarian Israelite, to believe that dreads or Nazarite vote and all that, go ahead. But you're going to be destroyed by the Lord. Because we told you that dreads is a heathen custom. It's not an Israelite custom. You want to keep that long-ass, dirty-ass hair that's filled with dirt. It's compacted. When you have dreads, you have to literally sit under a dryer for about 7-8 hours. If your hair don't dry all the way, it gets mold. When you wash it, you can wash your hair a gang of times with dreads, and that shit, dirt just keeps coming out. Dreadlocks is the most dirtiest hairstyle in the world. You can use the damn baking soda, the apple cider vinegar, the sea salt. I already know about all that because I used to have dreads before I came into the truth. I grew it for like 2 years. It is not an Israelite custom, man. It's a heathen custom. All right? It's hard to manage. Trust me, you can wash your hair a gang of times. Dirt still comes out. And if you don't dry your hair all the way with that shit, it begins to get mold and etc. With plaits or braids, your hair won't do all that. You won't do all that. Right? With braids, you can just take that shit out. And then once you take that shit out, man, you can wash your hair, and that's that with a braid. A dread, you fucking wash your hair, that shit is sitting wet for a long time, man. Alright, it's sitting wet, mold, etc. It's not an Israelite custom, man. So, hey, I'm not going to ramble with this. Lord willing, you was edifying, man. On to the next one. Shalom.